Hello everyone and welcome to the Deep Blue Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deep Blue Renegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 356. Today is Saturday, February 13th, 2021, and I'm glad you could join me today. We are coming at you from the time of the ocean is, what would it be? Reflecting all of the sunshine into like some sort of great crazy sparkle fest outside. And likely the lighting won't be good. Too super duper great today, but such is life. I think I will be able to get a better lighting setup put together once I can get the former chair of podcasting out of this room, but until that happens, it will be a little bit awkward. But I definitely see a path for it occurring. The only thing maybe holding me back is providing the Dear Sweet Lovable One replacement lights, because he is currently using them as lights in our garage. But such is life. And recording a little bit later today because we ended up going on an adventure to the Marid headlands, so we got to go to high places and look at sparkly ocean and travel in and out of zones of redwoods. So it was a nice little trip. Because we haven't been super duper good about leaving the house, and certainly haven't left the house together in quite some time. So that was a nice little diversion for today. We have a long weekend, so this also means that, what would it be? This also means that we have a little bit more time to chill, which would be lovely. Yep, and what would it be? We ended up doing like a little celebration of Chinese New Year yesterday, or Lunar New Year. So my husband is part Chinese, and that is whatever, a little piece of his heritage that he likes to make sure we maintain. So we got our delicious dumplings and long noodles, and it was good. And the coffee definitely is warm and delicious today, so glad for that. And also went to the third and final baby shower amongst the cousins. So we made a slow transition from my dad's side through my sister to my mom's side, so not too crazy. But what was it? I have to laugh a little bit because my uncle back in April was like, mark my words, there's gonna be a baby boom, and I just thought he was totally crazy. He was right. He was right. So, yeah. What would it be? It seemed like everyone had it happen at the same time. So, what's going on here? There is, oh, I forgot to weigh. Oh well, I sort of like came home and was like, I should immediately get the coffee on for podcasting. So I have 2 projects going right now. One of which is somewhat unquantified, but at the very least we do know. Actually, it's going to take a little bit more effort to get it all ready to go. Because I noticed that I was knitting things incorrectly, which is slightly silly. So I will need to do a little bit of backtracking, so perhaps it is a hopefully not too much backtracking, but I need to do a little bit of backtracking. So this is the Viajante shawl. It is a Martina beam pattern that I'm knitting out of Wollmeise lace in the Rittersporn colorway. And I have managed to get a pretty good deal done on the shawl. You can see where the zone of sunshine. It's like, where's the zone of sunshine? We found it. So, whew, it's like, you cannot see the purple, but I swear there is purple, though having it be blown out is probably not very helpful either. And I've gotten quite a bit more of the lace mesh done this week, but not like super duper a ton. I did not get nearly as much progress done as like last week, so here's my little progress keeper and here's my center of row. So we're talking so I have 13 rows done this week, and I will need to do a little bit of backtracking because I was supposed to be decreasing this row, and I guess I got distracted and did the one plain row there is in this little mesh pattern with beads. And yeah, so a little bit silly there. But the ball is definitely noticeably depleted. Definitely, it may be 1 or 2 weeks before I wrap this guy up. It just sort of depends on what I feel like working on. But yeah, no, I'm definitely making very good progress on this. This is quickly dwindling the ball. But I don't think it was a 10 or 15% week this week for sure. What was it? I didn't have a chance to chitty chat with the cousin I'm making it for. She's on my mom's side, about what would it be? About the fact that it was almost done, though I was working on it in front of them. So, what would it be? I think part of this is that I do not want to widely advertise. Oh, I'm back on track. I didn't have to rip all the way back. Oh man, I don't know what was going on there. So not too crazy there, but I didn't, strictly speaking, want to knit shawls for all of my cousins unless they really, really ardently wanted them. But it'll be okay. So yeah, I'm not sure whether or not I'll get it done this week, though I do have extra knitting time this week due to the day off. So that's exciting. But almost there, which will be good. And then the obligation knitting will be complete. It will only be doing things that I feel like doing, which is lovely. Though sometimes it is nice to have like a good constraint. For like creativity purposes, can definitely feel much more creative when you have to work around things. And the coffee is really nice. I don't think this would be something that I would get on the regular. Or what would it be? But such is life. I definitely need to find sources of more natural processed coffee, as you do. So I probably should have put a progress keeper in this project, but did not. Maybe I will incorporate a progress keeper soon. But this is my crayon etching sweater, which apparently ended up getting closed. And it might be in a tab somewhere. I'm really sort of curious where it ended up. I have like 2 groups of Ravelry tabs on my computer, some of which are somewhat repeated. Where is it? This is turning out to be way more challenging than I was expecting it to be. There we go. So Netsuko Aida is the designer. And now I've actually opened up the pattern, so I can have that back up again. What would it be? I think my computer went through like a restart. So I ended up making some modifications here, and hopefully it won't be too crazy to deal with, but I ended up, what would it be, doing more decreases for the front and the back to keep the back closer to, or would it be to make it so that it wasn't sort of like loosey-goosey in the back. What would it be? I probably could have done something where I ended up just keeping an even keel on the sleeve increases, but I think I was worried about something at the time. So it's definitely very much so a freestyle affair. Because my gauge was closer to 5 stitches per inch instead of 4, that meant I sort of went off pattern rather quickly. But I did end up using all of the information for the short rows for the neckband, and then after that things just got a little bit crazy. So I have been, yeah, there was something going on, but it's okay. So what's happening now is I'm heading towards the body. I'm contemplating if I want to take a break and knit some sleeves in. Yeah, I know. So shouldn't be too crazy. It was more like I'm reading the pattern to try to figure out what it is that I want to do exactly. I'm thinking that I won't alternate. I don't think I'm gonna actually alternate yarns for the sleeves. I'm just going to knit the yarn that was previously for the sleeves, and I've been working my way through all of the different balls I have. And I'll probably end up doing one more modification, which is I'm going to end up doing like long ribbed cuffs on it. That way I don't need to knit as much as much linen stitch. So this is the big whole ball that I had going on, which is now looking noticeably depleted. And then 2 of these guys were formerly sleeves and will become sleeves again. I just have to figure out which ones weigh the closest to each other to select. And then I have a couple of small balls remaining of this. So it's quite possible that I'll be able to, once I get sort of to this stage, just alternate the biggest balls remaining. And then I'll probably finish off with, I don't know, we'll figure out what I decide I want, how I want to finish things off. But the big thing there was just limiting how much linen stitch I was going to be doing. But yeah, no, so got to sleeve separation, so I'm probably getting close to sort of the halfway point on the sweater, which is pretty awesome considering I'd only started it like last Wednesday or Thursday. And really loving how gorgeous the yarn is and how all of that's turning out. So I didn't mention the yarn. So this is Neighborhood Fiber Company Studio Worsted in a custom dyed colorway that was based on a fractal that I had made. I don't know if it's my logo fractal or not. It might be my logo fractal. So very, very cool there. So it is like a gorgeous dark teal with like navy and black in it. If you need the color description, can we bring it in super? Yeah, that's a little blown out, but it does sort of cover how gorgeous it is. So there definitely is sort of like patches of color in it, but not too crazy there. And I do really, really enjoy the wrong side texture as well. So I'm trying to keep things as neat and tidy as possible so that I have the option of wearing it either way. So it'll just look a little rough on the neckline, but that shouldn't be too crazy. So that is the story there. So I think that received most of the work this week. I ended up getting hyper focused on getting to sleeve separation. And I forgot that linen stitch is more like a 2-pass sort of stitch, so it's definitely the case where 2 rounds equals 1 row. So it's fine, it's just like, oh. But hopefully I'm past the halfway point of knitting linen stitch. That would be super duper exciting. So I ended up starting a new spinning project. So this is the 6th of my Spin the Bin projects, and this one is a fractal spin that I did from the drum carding for fractals class that I took last January with Clemis and Clemis. So they did like a little workshop thing. So this is Sliver that I ended up creating in the class, and it's transitioning from the brown BFL to the cream BFL. I really do like working with carded Sliver quite a lot. It's been a fun spin so far, though I barely started it because I ended up spinning all of the Rologs last night. So I actually started spinning this during the Spin 15 a Day Makers Meetup. So that's my Friday night group. It is a North American based Friday night group. So very, very fun group of people. And I ended up doing the Rologs end to end. So I did brown to white, white to brown, brown to white. And how this ended up working out, because I had an odd number of Rologs, I think. I had the correct number, or I had the correct even or oddness of the Rologs that it will end with white, so I will start plying it with white and end plying it with brown, which is the same as how it's going to work out with my long gradient. So that ended up turning out fairly well, all things considered. So these Rologs were a pleasure to spin. So I think there's something to be said about working with Rologs that were prepared on a drum carder and how well blended they are versus playing around with Rologs that I made on the blending board. Or would it be, as someone who really loves the tool, will say that would it be definitely prefer the drum carder over the blending board for sure. The drum carder makes much, or would it be, seems more in line with my fiber preparation preferences. Try saying that 5 times fast. So we've got this guy, which is all done. Let's see if we can get it out of the sun and into focus. There we go. So there are the singles there. And there really hasn't been any other spinning. I did finish all of the skeins that I had pending, because so many so many skeins, but there really hasn't been very much spinning this week. There was mostly just Friday night. Actually, it was entirely Friday night. There was no Saturday spinning. But what I have to show you guys next is my dyeing experiment from last week. So this is my Yarn Place Gentle mohair cashmere cobweb yarn that I had dyed way back probably in 2012, maybe 2011. And so this is 1,000 yards and 80 grams, and I ended up doing cake dyeing. So I took the ball, I wound it into a cake, then I wound it into a cake again in order to make sure that I had as loose a cake as possible. I then dumped it into the dye pot with a lot of blue yarn, and not like a whole lot of acid, and then I played a waiting game. So what ended up happening, or would it be? So I did that for quite some time until I got most of the dye soaked up. I threw in my Mohair Surprise 10-gram mini to sort of clean up the rest of the dye that didn't seem to want to bind. I then took it out of the pot. I wound it into a center pole ball again, but this time having the blue be the inside. And then I went through and did another pass of dyeing with it. I didn't end up changing the water, so the color penetration in that second pass of dye ended up being much more shallow on this guy. So it was mostly just on the outsides. But what this is going to do is it has sort of flecks of blue throughout because the cake had exposure on the tops and bottoms of the cake throughout. But then it has sort of a long color gradient on the beginning and a shorter color gradient at the end. So this one sort of goes from like a bright blue through to like a turquoise. And then the other side is sort of a shorter bright blue to turquoise sort of transition. We'll see. That probably is ever so slightly blown out, but such is life. So you can see we now have yarn that is much more blue. But there's definitely still some of the original color there, but the appearance of it being maybe a little bit more yellow is less obvious now, which I'm okay with. So the plan is to knit the Chazarande lace shawl, which has like lace and beads and all sorts of fun frippery on it. But this is sort of the short, or what I have here is sort of the short blue stint from the second pass of dyeing. And then I have a longer thing of a longer transition of blue here. But then there still is, would it be some of that more really green? I don't know. I don't think we're going to be able to properly show this in this time of, would it be sunshine going straight through here? But it is, I think it's turned out really, really gorgeous. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So when I knit the shawl, I will start with the short section of blue, and so I'll have a nice block of blue at the neck, and then I'll knit through the body with the green with various flecks of blue in it, and then the border will be a longer section transitioning from the teal to blue. So the most effective way to dye a gradient is to knit a blank and hand paint. But dyeing in a cake, I think, is the next best way to make that happen, because what you end up getting is, or would it be, so it ends up being sort of the laziest way to dye a gradient is to dye it in a cake, because you do get some of the color you're putting on the outside throughout, but you also end up, what would it be, having the diffusion and the resist of the yarn being in the cake end up sort of creating that transition for you. And I think if I do it again in the future, I think it's easier to do with thicker yarn, so this cobweb just takes up so little space, it can pack in so closely with its buddies that would it be, you don't end up getting a lot of water movement throughout the skein. But you know, you live and you learn. It was the case where I hadn't experimented very much with it before, so it's super fun and festive. So there you go, rough approximation, maybe a little more blown out than it actually is, but pretty gorgeous overall. And then with my second pass of dyeing, I ended up doing that the next day, so I left the cake in the pot overnight. Didn't really have very much dye take up. When I ended up getting home on Sunday, ended up heating it up and going through the process. And then I ended up using one of my second skeins from my my Ginny the Fleece project, so I ended up throwing that in to soak up the remainder of the blue dye, which ended up working out fairly well. And it was the case where, based on where I had been keeping the skein, it did end up having some color change due to the sun, so also good to know. I don't know if it was the red or the blue that was fugitive. I'm guessing it was the red though. So as a result, good to know there. So dyeing it blue ended up sort of covering a little bit of that. But it does explain why the purple isn't staying purple. Oh well, definitely one of those the more you know sorts of situations. So, what would it be? We've covered the shawl, the sweater, the fractal spin, the dyeing from last week. I've already put away the skeins that I had used as yarn mops to sort of soak up the remaining dye. The main thought being finding something in the stash and throwing it in the pot and not thinking about it is the big thing there. It's actually pretty toasty back here. It would be definitely needed the hat while we were driving around in the convertible with the top down. But do not need the hat when hanging out in the room that soaks up all the sun, as you do. But not too crazy. Trying to see if there are other things that I wanted to talk about this week. I don't think so. What would it be? I might sit down and go through the what would it be, the Stitches West has like a little scavenger hunt going on, so I might end up sitting down and doing that while the going through the process of editing the video. Not that it's super long, but it's probably a decent plan. But yeah, no, not too many exciting things happening around here, which is fine. I told you all the excitement at the beginning. So, sure, whatever. We'll just go with a shorter episode this week. That'll be fine. So, with that, I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. So, take care, guys. Bye-bye.